Hello, everyone. Lisa Zabaniak here from Life Like You Mean It. And today we are talking about how we can be working cyclically with our cycle and the cycle of the moon as witches. So, if you hear some funny noises in the background, that's just one of the dogs that wants to have their voice heard. So, cyclic living for witches. I have a lot of posts out there or videos out there about working with the moon. In fact, there's a whole playlist for you that you can check out on that. And so it's literally called Working with the Moon. And what we have when we're talking about cyclic living is we want to understand that there are 4 seasons in the year. Of course, everybody understands that. And there's a very specific energy with each of these seasons, right? With winter, everybody knows that we all hibernate in winter. It's not really considered a big social time. It's more of a kind of, you eat more kind of starchy, heavier foods, and you don't really do a lot of activities outside of work. Play kind of becomes smaller, if you will. And then we move into springtime where everybody kind of comes back outside and starts lighting up the barbecue and starts inviting people over. And right, you start to have a different shift in energy. And then, of course, that leads into summer where, now you're wearing, lightweight clothes and you want to eat more lightweight foods, right? And so everything starts to change. And then you go into fall where it's, oh, I'm really excited that I get to put on a jumper again. And right, you start to wear those kind of fall colors and those little bit of a thicker clothes, and you put socks back on your feet. And right, so there's a whole energy, a whole vibe with our different seasons. And what I want to point out is that we've got 4 cycles in the moon every single month as well. And those 4 cycles are absolutely connected with the 4 seasons. Now, the 4 seasons obviously are throughout the whole year. We don't go through spring, summer, winter, and fall in one month. Not technically, not actually climactically, but we do go through those seasons metaphorically with our energy. So let me just tell you what I'm talking about. So our 4 seasons of the moon, I don't actually know how to share on here when I'm live. So pardon me if you actually can, but I haven't figured out how to do that. So I want to start with the new moon because well, today is the new moon. It is March 21st. It's the spring equinox as well as the new moon. So it's an incredibly powerful day to manifest. And with springtime, of course, that is the time that you would start to have more energy. The new moon is actually today. You might not be feeling like you have a lot more energy. The new moon is synced with our actual menstrual cycle in terms of the menstruation itself. This is when a lot of women will actually be starting or be on their period. And because of that, their physical energy is lower, their mental energy is lower. They want to do if they want any exercise, it's more of a gentle, you go out for a stroll in nature, maybe a gentle stretching class or something like that. And, their foods are kind of going towards more of the kind of heavier proteins, the fats, those types of foods. And that really is the same as winter. Right? Winter is when we feel that way as well. We don't feel like we have a lot of energy. We don't feel like we want to do a lot of heavy, intense exercise or activity, just generally speaking, right? And we tend to be gravitating towards those heavier foods. And within a week, we'll move out of new moon energy and we will move into our into our waxing moon. Yeah. Yep. And our waxing moon is when the moon starts to grow. So the new moon is not visible in the sky. We literally don't see a moon in the sky. And then on the waxing moon, we start to see a little sliver, and then that starts to become crescent, and then it starts to become more of a half moon, right? So we're gearing up towards a full moon. So during this week, week and a bit's worth of time. This would be like in the menstrual cycle, your menstruation has finished and you are in the follicular phase of the menstruation cycle, which means that your body is gearing up to release another egg. It's not releasing it yet, but it's gearing that up. You've got a lot more energy. This is more like springtime, right? You've got a lot more energy. You're planning, you're problem solving, right? Your mental and physical energy is now growing. You don't really want to just do light exercises, stretching now. Now you want to go and do exercise that's going to actually play on your physical stamina. Maybe you love to dance. Maybe you like a Zumba class, right? Maybe you're into karate or cycling or something like that. You've got the energy for that now in the waxing moon. And you want to get outside and enjoy nature more. Whereas in the new moon cycle, you maybe were dragging yourself out of the house because you knew you would feel better. And now you are actually like, oh, this, I need to be outside. I love it. But it's also when you are going to start into your creative phase. And then a week later, we are into summer energy, which is the full moon, which is linked with ovulation with your menstrual cycle. So we're going to release another egg. We're going to have another chance at new life over here. And in this full moon energy is when you are at your peak. This is when you really want to be socializing. You really want to be hanging out with all of your friends. You want to meet new people, do new things, go to some networking meetings or whatever it is that you want to do, right? You're all up for it. Yeah, 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 yeah. It also is the time when you are the most productive and you're making lots of plans. So you're scheduling things in advance, right? So you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's meet up in 2 weeks' time and blah, 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 right? You've got all the dates all arranged. This is summer, right? Linked with summer energy. And of course, as soon as we come out of summer, we go into fall or autumn. And that's when we start to feel a little bit more cozy. We still like being around people, but not as social, right? We're starting to go within a little bit. We're starting to kind of prepare for hunkering down for winter, right? This would be our luteal phase. So we have already ovulated in our menstrual cycle, and luteal phase is when we are going to be pregnant if that is going to happen. Right. And if not, we're going to dissolve that egg and we're going to get ready to actually start another menstrual cycle. So this is where our physical activity changes again. We're in the full moon. You were at your in most intense energy. So were your workouts. Now in the waning moon, you're starting to back that off. And the waning moon just means we go from the full moon that we can see and it starts to get smaller and smaller back into a crescent again, moving out of view until we're into new moon where we can't see it again. So with this waning moon, your exercise is changing. You don't have the intense energy any longer. So maybe you're shifting out of this like high impact intensity training type of exercises into more like yoga or Pilates or something like that, right? You're starting to shift what you're eating again, right? Full moon, summer energy, more salads, more lightweight food. And when we get into the waning moon, we might not feel like eating salad is satisfying us as much. We might start bringing in some more protein and maybe some more carbs, things like that, right? You start to become a little bit more sensitive to your environment and to people around you, right? And to your own situations. And then, of course, that leads us right back the next week into new moon energy where menstruation happens and we are back into kind of cocooning and not wanting to be social. So, why this is so important, cyclic living is yeah, it takes a little bit of time for you to kind of get used to where you are on the cycle because, of course, different women are different. Our cycle is not a full 4 week cycle, it's somewhere between 28 days and 32 days. Well, most of our months are within 30 and 31 days. So, we're not always going to be this exactly precisely in tune with the moon if we are menstruating, right? We might not, instead of bleeding on the new moon, we might bleed on the waxing, the full or the waning moon, right? And so getting to know where we are in our cycle compared to where the moon is in its cycle and where we are resonating most. If you are still a menstruating woman, you are going to most likely identify more with where your cycle is rather than where the moon is. But when you shift into menopause and perimenopause, right, when you start to have fewer periods or they are irregular or you're not having any periods at all, when you're pregnant and you're not having periods, if you have a health condition and you're not having periods, if you're a man, don't have periods, then following the moon energy is actually where you are most likely to be resonating at any given time. And why this plays such an important part is to recognize on a day like today, when it is the spring equinox, right, and it's the new moon, we should be feeling all of this spring energy, and you might a bit, right? You might have some fresh cut flowers around. You might be feeling like the excitement because it's a nice and sunny, bright day where you are, maybe, and you're starting to feel the excitement of spring, but you're not fully there yet. And if that's the case, that's just because you're also feeling the new moon energy, right? And so it's about learning where you are in the cycle and using the cycle to your benefit so that instead of being hard on yourself when you are sitting there in your full moon phase where you have the most energy, you want to be around people the most, right? You're social, you're creative, you're planning, and you're sitting there making all your plans for all of your get togethers for the month. And then the very next week, you're out of that energy. You are now into the waning moon. You're starting to go within. You're not entirely excited that you plan something for yourself every single night this week after work, right? That was last week's vibe, not this week's vibe, right? And then even worse, when you go a week after that, you don't want to be around anybody, right? So whether you're menopausal or whether you are still having a period, it doesn't really matter. You still have that kind of ebb and flow of where you are at in relation to the moon and its cycling and the kind of seasons that are being brought up every single month. So you can start to get used to how this is playing out in you, and you can start altering the foods that you're eating, the type of exercise that you're doing, right? And when you are making arrangements to have to get projects done with work or have to do really creative things or wanting to socialize, you can make them according to where you feel you will be in regards to the moon cycle and where you are in that cycle so that you don't get yourself in this position. Of course, there's going to be times where there's going to be people who will, invite you to do something. Maybe it's a concert. It's like that's a fixed date, so you've got to go. But generally speaking, right, when you're making plans, you can empower yourself by using this knowledge to make informed decisions about your life and start planning things accordingly so that you are not letting yourself down or anybody else down. You don't feel that guilt, right, for not feeling like doing that anymore. You have a better understanding of what is going on, right? Instead of feeling like, oh my God, why would I go and I plan all of this? I'm such a smuck, right? For planning these things when, now I don't even feel like going. I feel so guilty. I'm going to have to let them down. Or you can avoid all of those types of things. You can also use it for your witchcraft, right? So if you are a practicing witch, or you're looking into getting into becoming a practicing witch, then you can start looking at this and realizing, okay, so as I'm starting to gather up different materials and different ideas for spells, I'm going to be more creative when I'm in the waxing moon phase. And that means that maybe that is the week that I should be trying these things out. This is the week that I want to try these new spells, see how I like them, maybe play around with them and add different things and, create a concoction that works the best for you. Write it all down, right? That's your week to be fiddly with these things, right? To create this beautiful masterpiece of a spell that you would offer other people, for example, or just do for yourself. And perhaps maybe the best time to do that tinkering is not in the waning moon or the new moon phase when you don't really feel very creative. You don't really feel like you've got a lot of energy at all. It's not really the time that you want to be playing around with something because you don't feel very playful. But if you put it on your calendar to do in the waxing and the full moon, where you will feel playful, you will have lots of energy, and you will be really creative, amazing, right? Same sort of thing. Like there's lots of different types of witches, right? There are witches that consider themselves a kitchen witch, which you can imagine loves to create things with food, right? Or herbal tinctures, right? So you can have a hedge witch, a hedgerow witch. You can have a cosmic witch that is more about astrology and right. So there's lots of different types of witches out there. I consider myself an eclectic witch, so I've got a little bit of everything, things that I resonate with rather than sticking me in a box. But if you've got, say, a kind of a flair for kitchen witchery, well, then it's the same sort of thing, right? It's all about experimentation. You might find that you really do love to cook when you are in the new moon energy because that is your kind of release, right? Whereas for the rest of us, we might find the last thing that we want to do during that energy is to be cooking and being creative with new things because we don't feel creative. But if you're a kitchen witch, you might still actually appreciate that kind of release of energy to be able to actually channel in what is going on with you into your creation of cooking and release that with that actual cooking. Or you might find that the creativity comes in the waxing and the full moon where you create it, whether it's in your mind or you actually tinker with it, and then it's all about meal prepping and things like that so that you have those meals already made for you with love that you can just warm up during the week of the new moon, right? So it's playing with these types of things. But definitely, whatever type of witch that you are resonating with being, then if you are not already into the cycles of the moon, this is a real game changer for you because it's the self-esteem and the real compassion that you develop for yourself when you start to understand your own cycles. And then the whole being able to use these cycles in your actual craft, whether that practice is for you personally or for other people. It's amazing and such an ultimate game changer. And such a great way, if you don't consider yourself to be a witch or you're a very, very beginner witch, this is a really great way to bring you into kind of connection, if you will, with nature again, right? Just because you increase your observation of what's happening with the moon, but then what's happening with plant life and the animal life and within yourself, right? And how that moon is impacting everything. So it's a really beautiful way to start as a baby witch in this practice. So, speaking of baby witches and even intermediate witches, if you have loved this and this is your total cup of tea, I would love for you to join me in the Witch membership, which is a Patreon membership that I have set up with 3 different levels for you so that you can choose whichever tier is best for you, the maiden, the mother, the crone. And each one of them obviously has different kind of materials and things that on offer for you. So you just choose whatever one you are resonating with, and you can upgrade or downgrade at any time. And the link for that is down in the description. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe. Bless.